So the plan for this next hour is it's very free form. We thought that there might not be enough time for Q&A, and we realized people have lots of questions around EOSC. So we wanted to have a session where literally you can ask anything. So there isn't a set agenda. We have a Slido where you can ask questions. We can also have people raise hands and speak out, and have some discussion. I think because we have an Ask Me Anything session every day, I think it's very good if we try and like focus on the topics that have come up in the day. But there are members from various different EOSC working groups here, from various different EOSC projects. So you could technically ask something around, FAIR or architecture and or the sustainability. So it doesn't need to be limited to the topics this morning. But I think certainly if you have questions around the EOSC Association, we do have experts here from that. So it would be good to focus those questions today. So I'm just going to see other members of the executive board, Carol, and I think Rupert's maybe here, potentially Catherine. I'm just looking through the names. If others want to give any directions as well, and then we can maybe start a discussion. So I see there's not any new questions in the Slido, which may just mean that people are still eating their lunch and are not back yet, or it might mean that we've answered everything that you wanted to ask this morning. So I'm just going to ask if people have questions or observations that they would like to make, if they would like to raise a hand or pop something in the Slido. I'm just going to look if any hands are raised. They're not just yet. One thing I may reflect on then that had kind of come up just before we kind of broke for lunch. I'll just kind of come out of my screen here. There was a question around the EOSC Association and the governance of that. And there is a diagram, it's actually very tiny here. I'll try and make a little bit bigger. And I'll share screen because this may help with one of the points that we were raising just before the break. So there was a question asked around the mandated organizations and their role, and apologies that this is a very grainy image. I just cut it from the terms of reference for the steering board, so it was quite small when I first cut it out. But what we were discussing about there being essentially a tripartite, yeah, Richard Dennis is saying you can't really see it. I'll talk through it and then hopefully you can see what it says. So there are three bodies in the EOSC Association. There's the three bodies in the future EOSC. There's the association, which we had a discussion about, people being members of the association. The association has its statutes, and within that there are various groups. So there's the General Assembly, so every member has a delegate in the General Assembly. There's an executive board, which will be, a subset of, I think the statutes state a minimum of 7, but it could be more members in the executive board. And there will be some kind of secretary general or director and program office, so a secretariat. So the association is one of the 3 bodies in the future EOSC. We then also have the steering board, which is a group of member states and associated countries, and every member state and associated country has a nomination on the steering board. So that is effectively like the current governance board. And then there's also this partnership board, which is a new group. The partnership board will sign the MOU, so that the MOU signed between the Commission and the association. And the partnership board will have representation from the European Commission and the steering board and the association. So these are the three bodies in the new governance. Now I see this has
Sorry, Sarah, the partnership board will not sign the MOU. As you can
sorry,
see on the line,
association.
the Commission and the association. Therefore, it's on the line which you are depicting.
Yes. Sorry. So it's actually the association that signs it, because you need a legal entity to sign that with the Commission. And then the partnership board is a group of the three representatives from the three bodies in the governance. I see asking this has started to bring up a couple of things in chat. Let me pull the chat window over here. There's questions here from Pilar about the diagram. Thanks for the diagram. I'd like more clarification about the relationship amongst all the EOSC related elements, the EB, the EC, the association, all projects funded by Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, the partnership board. Carol or any other members of the EB, would you like to reflect on all of these different bodies and how things connect together?
they all build EOSC together. That's the thing they have in common. I would like to see them much more closely linked, but this is a difficult thing, especially for the projects. In theory, at least, the projects are completely autonomous. They have been granted by the Commission, and they stand on their own. Then the Commission itself, of course, is autonomous, and the association again is autonomous. So by bringing these parties together in the partnership board, but on the partnership board there will be, of course, not the project, but bringing several of these parties together, we hope that we can get a better coordination going. Another way is, of course, influencing the call for proposals for Horizon 2020, and in that draft MAR we have been talking about this morning, we have stipulated very strongly that the coordination between the still running project is extremely important. Of course, we have to look at the projects that are finished and the outcome of that, which we will do and which we are doing. But more important is the projects that are starting now. There's Horizon Infra EOSC 03, Infra EOSC 07 calls, they still have to start. And the projects that are still running with the EOSC label, it's very important that we get those together to get a much more coordinated approach towards the whole system. Maybe Catherine, you would like to add a few words. I just saw you pop up.
Yeah, I pop up, huh? No, I just wanted to say something, take a step back. We talk a lot about the EOSC partnership, but what we should remember at the same time is that the EOSC partnership is one of many. There will be, depending on the final decision, of course, there will be, up to 48, 50 new partnerships created in Horizon Europe, and they will all be based on the same structure with a partnership board that involves, a subset of the member states, associate countries, the association associated with this partnership, and its executive board. So this is all new for us at the moment, but it will be quite normal once Horizon Europe has started, because all of the partnerships will, interact in a very similar way, which is new to us now, but which will be the norm in all of the partnerships that are being created. So EOSC is in that respect nothing special. It's just that the confusion is there because we're entering a new model. It's a new model, and therefore, everybody's like, what's this tripartite partnerships, this, that?
Yeah.
It'll all be clear, because a lot of different, organizations, associations are going through exactly the same process now.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. And actually, there's a kind of follow-up question there from Emma Ladsfree, just a curiosity. Could you tell us more about how the current EB, the exec board, will hand over to the EOSC Association and when it will start? I think some of this is in train already, largely because we've got some overlap in personnel. The fact that Cesar and Jeon are both founding members of the association and the current two chairs of the exec board. But Jose Luis and from CSIC and Federico from GAR have also been, involved in meetings so that we can do that transition. But I don't know if either of you have reflections on ways in which we're doing it, how it will happen, when it will start.
It's not a particular moment in time. It's not that on December 31st, 12 o'clock at night, it will be handed over. No, we are already in very intense contact with the other founding members, Catherine and me as directors from Géant and from César. There's a lot of involvement from CSIC, there's a lot of involvement from GAR in setting things up. And the next step will be that we will invite more and more of the candidate members, which we did already for the bylaws drafting group, into our activities. We have also invited the other founding members into the SRIA discussion. In the working groups, we should not forget, there are a lot of organizations represented in our working groups in some sort of way, and not necessarily as an organization, but individuals from all these organizations are in many of our working groups. They all feed their material also into the SCRIA. So it's, in my view, a fluent, natural, gradual process. And if we miss something, we should definitely look out for that. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to add here something.
No, I just would also stress that it is a process, and it is, I mean, in that respect, it's definitely a process, because I think the executive board is very aware that, to make this a success, we need to widen. And I think, the first, considering that we, in the founding members are already, including 2 members who weren't on the executive board but are coming directly from the member states, that's the first step. Then we involved candidate members in the drafting of the statutes and into the drafting of the bylaws. I think that's the next step, the continuous widening. And I think when we have the first General Assembly in December, with 180 plus new members and observers, that'll be the major step into widening. And I would assume that then the dynamics will also completely change, because then we go from an executive board, which, was set up by the European Commission. We go to an executive board that is voted by a membership organization with already 180 members. That'll change the dynamic, and that will make sure that EOSC is actually taken into that direction of the membership organization. And then there will, we will have the level of continuity, obviously, through the steering board as well.
Sarah, can I take the following question from the chat? Would the EOSC Association be an eligible entity to be part of any Horizon Europe consortium competing in infra-EOSC? Calls.
Yeah,
whether they will still be called infra-EOSC calls, I don't know. I don't think so, by the way. But the answer is yes, but not competing. So the answer is yes and no. We explicitly said that the association can also be in the projects, but not with things that can be done by its members. So it should not, as an association, compete with its members.
Yeah.
Or observers. That's the same story, of course.
Yeah, so there could be calls written specifically, like a CSA written specifically for the association,
for example,
which it would be eligible to apply for, but we don't want the association.
If I may, Sarah, the association could be the coordinator in 1 or 2 of the projects, and the coordinating role, not doing the project, but coordinating it would not be a bad thing in some cases if it is directly of value for the EOSC.
Yeah, and I think in one of the current infra-EOSC projects, the O3, the EOSC Future project, I understand there has been, allocation made within the work plan so that the association does have a role in that project. So I think, potentially the association may bid for things or may be part of projects, but it shouldn't be competing with its members. So we have this subsidiarity principle that we apply, in the statutes. I propose we take the other EOSC association question here and then maybe come to Philip Sager's questions about the HPC. So the one from Larissa, could a country nominate 2 or 3 representatives in the EOSC committee?
Yeah, I asked what is the EOSC committee, but it's meant, I got just as an answer, the steering committee. I assume this will be the steering board, as we now call it, or advisory board. That I do not know the exact answer to. The steering board is being formed at this moment by the governance board, so by a representative of the countries. So I assume that those countries are eligible to send one representative, but to have an alternate for this representative, as they mostly have in many of these organizations. So if you mean the steering board or the advisory board, the name has not been determined yet, then the answer would be yes, as an alternate, as far as I know. But you should actually ask the governance board.
Yeah, and I don't know. So I think the draft terms of reference had been shared by Andreas. I don't know if anyone from the governance board's on the call. What I recall seeing is that every member state and associated country has a delegate in that steering committee or board, and an alternate, so like the current governance board. And then when we think about the association, there's no limit on how many people from one country could be members of the association. But yeah, in terms of the steering board, it's, you know, a delegate and an alternate.
By the way, steering committee would be a much better name. Thank you for that.
I don't know if there's anyone up from the current governance board on the call that wants to answer. If you do, by all means, just unmute or raise a hand. And if not, we should maybe move to Philip's questions. There's two questions about HPC. So more concrete responses on the link between EOSC and Euro HPC would be welcomed, about how we link, not just that we're needing to think about it, it's not specific enough yet. And then a similar question, the European Commissioner founded the Human Brain Project. They've developed the Phoenix architecture to address the link to HPC. Why isn't this mentioned? I don't know if anyone wants to pick up on the HPC and EOSC questions.
May I ask Catherine to do so, because she is also working for a e-infrastructure organization, like I see the Euro HPC being an e-infrastructure helpful group. So Catherine, would you try and address that?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, one of the questions is why isn't it mentioned is because maybe the session today is not about architecture. You know, maybe these things will also come up in the architecture discussions, which I believe are tomorrow, Sarah, Carl?
On Wednesday. So tomorrow
on
Wednesday is the COVID day, and then Wednesday is Fair and Architecture.
On Wednesday, because I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, EOSC operates on a very wide spectrum, and there's a lot of interaction with all sorts of e-infrastructures on all levels. You know, you could equally say, you know, why is AAI not more highlighted here at this point in time, and it will be more highlighted in the future on Wednesday in a similar way as we will be discussing the COVID-19 research platform, I believe, tomorrow morning, which is another infrastructure integration around EOSC. So, you know, I don't know if maybe Philippe, you yourself, you want to mention something more here on Phoenix or on the Human Brain Project, but you know, I think it is maybe just because it's not the place today, and maybe, you know, the question is to be asked in the architecture working group that is on Wednesday.
Well, I can wait for another day, but I think the discussion that we are waiting for a long time. And what we have seen from the result of the last call, the last European call, Infra-EOSC 071A, is not very enthusiastic. There is a lot of things that have been done to perform this link, and if that's not taken into account, and we don't see it taken into account yet, it's becoming very difficult to envisage the future.
Philip, if I may, this question has been asked over and over again to us as an executive board. Let me be very open and direct and frank with you. As an executive board, we have asked all the projects and all the possible partners to come forward and to give their information. And it's not been very helpful so far, and not much came. And there were even, let's say, projects that refused to share their information. We've pushed the Commission to improve that. So I would be absolutely grateful if we could improve this. But yeah, as an executive board, we have been saying over and over and over again, and we say it again today, welcome, 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 please join the club, please get in touch, please let's talk. But I don't know, it seems to be very difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know what we do wrong, I don't know what we're missing. I'm sorry, I get a little bit desperate here, because this question is now not for the 10th time, but at least for the 100th time raised. So apparently something's wrong with the system. Rupert, you know the solution. I'm glad you know the solution, Rupert.
I'm not sure I know the solution. Sorry, I cannot raise my hand. Somebody has put me into the role of being co-host. So that's
the problem. Yeah.
Sorry. So Philippe, I think if I may briefly answer this, we have mentioned Phoenix in one of the earlier documents, and the predecessor of the Iron Lady document. As far as I'm aware, if you have might have seen this, so we see definitely the interaction with EuroHPC and PRAISE happening on the level of EOS Exchange. So that will be the services that will be domain specific and will come into play at a certain stage after the EOS core. And the initial federation of data has happened. So I think this is something where the community around EuroHPC and PRAISE are, as Carol mentioned, absolutely invited to contribute, and this will just be work of the future. And we have been stressing this, and absolutely, I mean, it's correct. There's so much work that has been done already in your domain. But this will need to be explored in the future together with the EOS Association and with the EOS community. How can this actually happen? So it's not yet there, but it has been mentioned, and we are seeing these efforts.
Philip wants to answer.
So thanks a lot for this very positive question. Yeah, I know it's been difficult. It's been difficult also for us and quite frustrating for us also, but we are really looking forward to more coordination and to work better with you. We are very open to that, and we know that it's difficult.
Sounds good.
Thank you thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing, for various groups to push, for the European Commission to reflect on, but also for the future EOSC Association to make sure that we do have this join up between the HPC initiatives and EOSC, and for, any new investments that are made in that space to ensure that they are collaborative and, bringing together these different stakeholder groups. So thanks for raising those, Philippe. If anyone else, I realize people have been put in the role of co-host from the exec board, but if other members of the exec board, like Jean-Francois from architecture or others, want to reflect on these topics, just put your camera on, unmute, or if people want to raise their hands, we'll monitor both the chat and the hands and the Slido, multitasking here. So maybe if we
There's an interesting question, if I may, Sarah, in the chat. Will mandated organizations have possibilities to serve their institutional interest on top of their national interest in the association's General Assembly? The short answer is they can only vote once. They either vote as a mandated member or they vote as a normal member, but they cannot vote for two. And so they have to serve the national interest if they are willing to become a mandated member, and then their voice is heavier than that of a normal member. But
yeah. So I mean, the mandated organization is officially there to represent the country and the country view at large, not their own personal organizational view.
Yep.
Okay, maybe one that Rupert, I don't know if you'll have. Do you want to take one from the Slido or reflect on that?
Actually, it's from this morning, and this is a little bit related to what was on the Slido. There was the question: how is the transition actually happening between the current executive board or the current governance and the EOS Association, and how could that be facilitated? And I saw a question this morning in the chat whether there would be a role of the existing working groups in the time to come. After the current EOS governance has finished up. So I think that might also be a question to reflect on. I'm not sure if the others, I don't have an answer to this, But this question I've seen also in our own working group, and also being asked by others. So there's this question existing: could there be a role of the currently existing working groups for the future to help?
Yeah,
with
I
the
think
transition?
it's an important question. I mean, the statutes for the new association envisage similar structures. So I think it's called other bodies. So it could be kind of working groups or task forces. And I think undoubtedly there's still lots of areas where work is needed. My personal preference would be that there is some overlap. I think there's a lot of expertise in all of these working groups, you know, around, you know, the work you've done on sustainability, around the business models, and the work that's happened in the FAIR group around the PID policy and the metrics and stuff, that I would like there to be some continuation. There may be new groups that we need to set up as well that tie in with our SRIA priorities, things like professionalizing data stewardship roles, and I think we need to be able to draw experts from various areas. But do other members of the EB, Carol, Katrin, have views on this, how we do that continuation?
I'm just thinking aloud now, Sarah, so if I'm wrong, please forgive me. But the first part of Rupert's question we've just addressed earlier in this chat, the handover from EB to association. I think we've said what we could say about that. But we didn't address the issue which Rupert also raised, is what about the working groups? And as you rightfully said, in the association, there's also the possibility to create bodies. The steering group, steering board, steering committee, or whatever the group will be called, can be one of those. Now I'll start thinking aloud, and I give my personal preference. I could imagine that it would be useful to ask the working groups, or some of the working groups, or whatever, to continue for a while, and then per definition adopt them within the association, but also for a while, because I think the association should have the possibility to create its own environment, to create its own structure. And on top of that, there's now only 4 founding members, and they should not decide on behalf of the 180 or so that are coming how this structure should be and what type of subgroups we have. Formally speaking, there is no overlap, of course, and formally speaking, it's the General Assembly that appoints the mandate for new groups within the association. So they have to make terms of reference. These terms of reference have to be approved by the General Assembly. And I can tell you, we will not be able to do that in December, in the first General Assembly. So I do share your thoughts and concerns, and that of Sarah with respect to continuity. I think we should address this in the setup group of the association. Katrin, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, from my perspective here really is the, you know, we need to strike a balance between what we need as continuity and where we need to open doors for the new membership organization to really start owning the process. It is very clear to me that, you know, a membership organization with 180 plus members is a completely different animal, and the dynamics will be different. But it is also clear that this membership organization and its new governance will need time to come up with new structures. Building structures is a lot more difficult than tearing them down. And I think we will need to be pragmatic, and we will need to probably take a focus or some way forward where we say, we will be pragmatic. The pragmatic way is to continue with the existing working groups if they wish to continue, while the membership organization is building the new structures the way they need to structure them. And I would hope that by that we can capture the continuity and keep the balance, which I think is very important. So it will have to be something that is really flexible, because what we don't want to do is tear something down before we have something new. But at the same time, we don't want to have the old models stopping us from developing something new. So I think it needs to have that flexibility, but I can see that happening. I think the community is ready to have that happening, and because it's a similar sort of process as we have seen with the membership overall and the extension.
And it is a difficult balance, of course, especially if only 4 have to make decisions there. There's a good suggestion, I think, from Patricia Mergen in the chat. working groups could help drafting the terms of reference, and they could later on be approved. Patricia, it is not that the General Assembly only meets once a year. Maybe in the long run this will be the case, but the General Assembly can again meet, let's say, relatively early next year to take these type of things on board. December, as I said, we will not make that. But you didn't suggest that, I'm just adding that.
Yeah. Patricia, I see Patricia's actually put a couple of comments about this. So in the Slido, there's a question about the gap and the transition, how it will be done, and the note here. So I don't know if you want to come in and speak to this, Patricia, if you've got particular views.
Well, I think that, hello. I think the different groups, we know more or less where we stand now, and to some extent, we have identified what we couldn't finish as we wanted, maybe by all these very hard deadlines. And we also have a good vision on what are the upcoming challenges. So I think we could, in the different groups, if the chairs agree and also the members, help in actually drafting those terms of references, with having a list of upcoming tasks and challenges that then could be suggested to the ESBL for further comments, of course, by all the members and the community to see where we stand. Yeah. And I also agree that probably there will be a need for maybe new groups or new tasks or mandates within these different groups. So it can be a transition, like building on everything that has been done, because there are massive documents also produced by all these consultants and work done that should definitely not get lost somewhere in the communication, I think, because they make a lot of good recommendations for the future in there.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I think the more we can build on those current structures just now and the expertise in the working groups and all of the gaps we've identified, the better. One of your questions as well, I'll just reflect on this. You'd asked about whether countries will appoint or nominate experts. That's how it worked with the current governance structure. The governance board nominated members. I personally would quite like to see a more open process as well, that it's not just through the countries. I think, you know, many people may know experts that could be brought into the groups, and if there was some kind of more open process where people could maybe the members of the association as a whole could help identify experts, that might be good.
Yeah, of course, the members of the association will bring forward suggestions for members of groups in whatever system. Huh?
Yeah, there had been a question, Rupert, I don't know if you're still here, but there had been a question which I think must have been voted up. There was something on the business, something on the business plans, which I'm just now trying to find quickly. It had been at the bottom of the list and now it's disappeared.
We will come back. I'm still here.
Let me see if I can just do a control and find on this page. One of the issues with Mentimeter, with not Mentimeter, with Slido. Is there a concrete business plan for EOSC? The discussion about governance, executive boards and association makes no sense if proper business model is not in place. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
So we have conducted a study on business models for the operational costs of the EOSC core, and we have some results of this. They are included in the Iron Lady. However, there is only preliminary information about extending of the business models and related information on if we go further towards developing the EOS exchange. There is discussions going on, and we have a useful input also from the study, and also discussions from the various stakeholders from other working groups. But this is preliminary. So there is information, but it's not too extensive. On the EOS core, the business models study is quite advanced. I can say, and we have and of course, I mean, we have views on how funding on how funding streams and funding models could work in the EOS exchange, but more work needs to be done there, and we are highlighting this in the Iron Lady, and so that work can continue in the SRIA and in the association.
And there's also a session dedicated on day 4 to business models.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning, Jessica. So on day 4, there's a dedicated session on Thursday morning that's shared by Lydia Borrell, the co-chair of the Sustainability Working Group, and with a couple of interventions and discussion.
Excellent. Thank you very much. There had been a couple of questions around the ESFRI, interactions as well. I don't know if yourself or Jan from Landscape want to reflect on some of those about the role of the ESFRI research infrastructures. I think it came up a fair amount in the landscape and sustainability working groups.
Jan Hozak is here, so maybe he could unmute. Jan? Okay. Later.
So Sarah, was that question about what is the role of the ESFRI cluster projects at all in general?
So the question was, can you expand on the interaction with ESFRI RIs? There had also been questions earlier about, whether the ESFRI forum, the ERIC forum, sorry, should have a vote as a mandated org as well. So I guess maybe just the importance of the ESFRIs coming up there.
I think we can all confirm that the interaction with the ESFRIs, with the ESFRI cluster projects and with the ERICs are absolutely important, because they provide a large and a very rich variety of data and other complementary services for their communities in the particular domain. So the continued interaction in the future will be absolutely key to the success of being able to federate data and the complementary services. Whether or not there should be a mandated organization for ERICs, I think that has been answered this morning already. Mm-hmm. So there has, as Karel pointed out, and I think also Luis Miguel, that the current version of the statutes have been designed in that way. So there might be work for the future to let that happen. But the interaction with the ESFRIs and with the ERICs is absolutely crucial.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks very much, Rupert. So looking through the Slido, I think we've addressed all the questions that were there, but I'm just going to invite, if anyone, wants to make other reflections, or raise a hand or speak out. This is very much a free-form kind of ask me anything session. So if there are things that you haven't had addressed, let us know now. Or perhaps, I don't know if anyone else from the executive board wants to make comments on the event as a whole so far, or things we've had discussed today. I mean, from my perspective, it was very useful, the sessions we had this morning, and I think the growth we're seeing of the association is very strong. It's very positive for the next phase of EOSC and for coordinating all the work that's going on.
If I may, Sarah, I would like to emphasize that word coordination once more, as you have done just a minute ago. And let's call on all the projects that exist and the projects to be, and all sounds like a huge amount, but there's at least about 10 or so. So let's call on them to really try and get in touch with the association and really try to jointly work on this endeavor we call EOSC. So I invite them all to come to us and to have contact, or if we approach them, if they want to, we'll be happy to. Because the coordination of these existing efforts is of crucial importance, I think, for not having parallel processes running.
Rupert, were you going to come in? You look unmuted.
Yeah.
You look unmuted. This harmless look.
So I think while you were asking about the impressions, I think one of the impressions, one of the things I found very interesting was where the comments provided by the German presidency, by Susanne Burger, and also the insight provided by Petra Gehring on their activities alongside the national activities, to see what's going to happen with the national data infrastructure initiatives and how can that feed into EOSC. And I think we have also seen from some of the comments and the questions that this is a very interesting, absolutely important aspect. So we have the international communities like those that were mentioned, the ERICs and the S3s. We have the national coordinations and the national policy and initiatives that are going on around managing of research data and complementary services. And I think that brings in quite nice aspects of various angles towards making sure that we feed all these things successfully into a future EOSC. So these different aspects I found very well and very balanced being presented this morning, together with the overview of the ongoing work where the association stands and the development of the sphere and all the other work around making sure that EOSC can really grow as fast as possible, as José Luis was outlining this morning. So I thought that was quite useful.
Yeah, I completely agree. Excellent. Okay. Well, if there are no other reflections or questions, I don't see any hands raised. What I would propose we do, there is one more session at 14:45, so half an hour from now, where a number of the co-creation projects will be presented. So the EOS Secretariat project had what they called a co-creation fund, where people could bid for small projects. Some studies were done within that, so studies that informed like the business models or work in sustainability and fair working groups, and also small projects that various members had put forward. So we'll have a number of lightning talks chaired by Bob Jones for the final 45 minutes. But I suggest we have half an hour coffee and stretch legs. And again, I'd just like to thank everybody, all the other members of the exec board for feeding into that discussion, and also you for your questions, because it's collectively that we need to build the EOSC. So thank you very much and enjoy your coffee.
Thank you, Sarah.